Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. This is part 2 of our look at the Hasbro 12-inch Universal Monsters figures from the late 1990s. Here's an example of a Phantom that we looked at last week. These were the individually boxed figures in the cardboard boxes. And this time, we're going to look at the later series sold in plastic tubes. To review, in 1997, Hasbro released a boxed set of 3 Universal monsters: the Mummy, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein. And this set was only available through JCPenney. I think later it was sold at Spencer Gifts. I don't know if that was like unbought stock, like old store stock, or if that was still part of when they were still manufacturing the box sets. But the original offering was through a special catalog supplement that JCPenney released during the summer of 1997, and then the monsters shipped in October. And as I said last time, they didn't come to your house. You had to go to the store, to the JCPenney store, pick it up, which I did. And I remember going to the catalog pickup desk and getting that box, taking it home, and seeing those monsters for the first time. And I hadn't really looked at them. I put them back in the shipping box. I hadn't really looked at them until I shot last week's episode. So that was interesting, seeing them again for the first time in 23 years. So that was 1997. In 1998, they reissued those 3 characters. Plus, they added the Bride of Frankenstein and the Phantom of the Opera. And this second wave with the 2 new characters, these were sold, like the one I just showed you, in individual boxes with the green and purple color scheme, which would become the standard Universal brand colors for all kinds of other monster products for the next several years. The Phantom was an exclusive that you had to order through the HasbroCollectors.com website. So they didn't sell the Phantom in stores. The other ones they sold in stores, but the Phantom, you had to order that through the Hasbro website. All of these monsters were based on a action figure body design that Hasbro developed in the early 90s for their G.I. Joe Hall of Fame series. G.I. Joe had been gone for a long time, at least the 12-inch style had been gone for a long time. And then in the 90s, Hasbro reintroduced the 12-inch G.I. Joe, but not on the old 60s, 70s, highly articulated, skinny bodies. They developed this new, really muscle-bound, thick body with arms sticking out. And that was the Hall of Fame body. And then they used that for other movie characters. And finally, the Universal monsters. So that's why they have a little different. These are like the action-packed Universal monsters. The Remco monsters from 1980, they were kind of action-packed as well. They had their hugging action feature, but they also were really husky. They had the thick necks and the stomachs or the chest that stuck out, and they were kind of brawny looking. So we'd had action-oriented Universal Monster toys before, but these really look like G.I. Joe monsters. These were the G.I. Joe version, 90s G.I. Joe version of the Universal monsters. So that was 97, 98. Then 1999, they put out the 3rd wave, and this time they really changed the packaging. They put them in these cryogenic chambers. They were these plastic tubes with, you'll see them in a second, with these round black plastic tops and bottoms, and look like a thermos or something. Well, you'll see. I'll talk more about it when you see it. But it was quite a departure from the previous packaging style. And they also Hasbro put out some Planet of the Apes figures in the same style, with the same kind of bodies and the same kind of packaging. And I don't know all the different stores that sold these, but I know for sure they were at Target, because that's where I bought mine. Target had the Universal Monsters, and they had the Planet of the Apes out at the same time. I don't know if they were shipped in the same assortment, but they were certainly out at the same time, and their planogram position on the shelf was right next to each other, and they kind of got intermixed as people looked at them. So that was 1999. And then we didn't see any more monsters from Hasbro. But then Sideshow came along with their 12-inch Universal Monsters. Well, first with their 8-inch, all PVC, no fabric costume, except for the occasional cape or something. Their 8-inch, Sideshow 8-inch figures, and then their G.I. Joe style 12-inch figures. But the Sideshow ones were more like the 60s and 70s G.I. Joe bodies. They were very skinny and lots of articulation. And we'll talk about the Sideshows in another show. I'm kind of saving the Sideshows for like the final season of Basement of Horror, whenever that is, because it's going to take multiple episodes to slog through all of that. And I've got almost all of the Universal product that Sideshow put out, except for the premium figures. I never bought the premium format figures. I bought the Creature, and I sold him. That's it. I was never into the premium format side. It was too expensive. They were not articulated. If Sideshow had made 24-inch action figures that were like their 12-inch and articulated, but twice as tall, I would have bought those. Even at the higher price point, I would have bought those. But those premium format things, and the way they were constructed was not consistent. The first couple that they put out were kind of like dolls with fabric bodies and wire armature inside. And then they switched to more like statues. Some of them were just all resin. And then the mummy, oh brother, I mean, that was, how much did that weigh? It was this huge resin piece with a big sarcophagus, and it was just like a solid resin mummy that fit in there, and a magnetic lid. Weird. So I'm going way off topic here, talking about Sideshow, but the things I'm going to show you, both part one and part two, these Hasbro figures, these are really the things that paved the way for the Sideshow. I don't know if Sideshow would have come along with their Universal products without the Hasbro or not. Maybe they still would have done it. I don't know. But these came first, and there had never been anything like these before. There never been any 12-inch Universal Monsters figures before. Hasbro was the first one out of the gate with these things. And then a few years later, we have the Sideshow figures. So these are really the precursors to the Sideshow figures. Well, I don't want to just... We'll deal with Sideshow at a later day. We don't need to talk about Sideshow right now. Let's talk about Hasbro. Just, I'm not looking forward to the Sideshow Chronicles, because that's going to be a big mess trying to cover that. I think I've said this before, somehow I got on a mailing list for Sideshow. I don't know who they thought I was, but they were sending me at least one free example of everything they made, well, at least monster-wise. So I got all the action figures and the 12-inch figures I got the big Frankenstein poser. I didn't get the Wolfman, though. They didn't send me the Wolfman. To this day, I don't have the Wolfman, the big poser. They sent me the little big heads. They sent me everything. So I didn't have to pay for that. That's why I have such a complete Sideshow set, because I didn't have to pay for it. They just sent it to me. That was nice of them. But I don't know if they were under the impression I was some kind of big shot or what. I had the gallery of monster toys. And, I mean, yeah, it was sort of well known among collectors. But it wasn't the kind of site where I'd be doing like a new toy profile every week. Like, here's the toy of the week, new Sideshow product. But, you know, I'm glad they did what they did. They sent me all those toys for free. That was nice of them, and they'll get their publicity 25 years late, when it doesn't really do them any good. In the next year or two, I'll do several Sideshow episodes and go through all of their products. Is he dinged? It's got a little ding there. Okay, so this is Count Alucard, the son of Dracula. And you can argue, is he really Dracula himself, or is he the son of Dracula? Well, the title of the movie is Son of Dracula. And I kind of go back and forth. Is he Dracula? Is he some other kind of a relative, a descendant of Dracula? Or is he indeed the son of Dracula? And I like the mystery of just not knowing. We don't need to know. Does he really look like Lon Chaney Jr.? Not really. He's kind of has a generic look. And I have two of these. He's got some scuffs. How'd that happen? Here's the other one. This one better. They're both about the same. Well, we'll keep him down there. Okay, so what can we say about this? They all have a little write-up on the back talking about the character. And the wording is kind of strange in some ways. It's almost like a review of the movie. Good dialogue and plot construction and some well-planned special effects add to this atmospheric tale. It's like a movie review talking about the film. And it talks about how you can use this to make a swiveling display stand. So let's look at the figure first, and we'll talk about this weird package design. So here's the full tube, and they're all in these tubes. And here's the top and the bottom. And now let's look at the toy itself, if we can see him. You can see there's some scuffs and things on the tube. So I bought all these off a toy store shelf in Target. I didn't order these. Unless they were mail order only, then I didn't have any choice. But the ones that were sold in stores, I bought at the store. So that's why I think some of these packages have a little, they're not quite as perfect as you might expect. There's the Signature Series holographic sticker. And it's interesting that his mustache is not sculpted on his face. It's painted on. It's a weird little mustache. It looks like more like a Italian chef. He should have a little Chef Boyardee kind of a chef's hat and white clothes. Or maybe not Italian. Maybe he's more French. A French chef. I don't know. But the mustache is not sculpted on, it's just painted on. So I feel like they originally intended to put him out without the mustache, and then they thought better of it. He has a nice costume, he's got a nice little vest there. Oh, and you can see he's got the big monster hands like Frankenstein had. Big old monster hands. I don't know if you can see any more detail. You can see his shoes. Now here's the, still using the Universal Blood Splatter logo. So you remember that the boxed ones had that half-face profile, and that continues on these. It's got really all of that artwork looks like it could have been on those cardboard green and purple boxes. I mean, it looks very compatible with that design. Only this is die cut and it's stuck in a tube. But I wonder, and that's a pretty good Lon Chaney Jr. painting, by the way. I wonder if these were originally planned to be sold in these style boxes. Well, this isn't a good example because this is the one. This and the Bride are the characters that didn't follow that format where they were looking straight ahead and had half the face cut off. But still, I mean, it's very compatible in design. So I wonder if the tube figures were originally planned to be sold in boxes like this, and then they changed their mind. And why did they put them in these tubes? It's such a weird format. And you can see here there's instructions about what to do with this tube. You're supposed to take the top off and stick it on the bottom and snap the top lid onto the bottom, onto the base, and then it makes a swivel base, and you can swivel him around. So he does have, it is like a doll stand. It has like a stem that comes up, and I guess it must go around his waist. I don't know if I can, yeah, I can kind of see it in there. Yeah, so it's like a doll stand, and so the base has a stem and some kind of a wire hook or something, and this is, so you're supposed to take the tube part off, but leave him on the stand, and it is kind of a sculpted stand. Let's see, can you see that? Yeah, well, sort of. So it has like a sculpted surface, like a rock, kind of an earth, you know, it's rock or mud or something. It has a sculpted surface. It's not just flat. And the idea is that once you take this top off and snap it into the bottom, then you can swivel it. Now, why you wouldn't, if you wanted to do that, couldn't you just sort of grab the spine of the stand and just move it yourself, or just pick up the figure and move it? No, it's supposed to have like a fancy little, but this, so I guess this is, these parts would sit on the tabletop or the shelf or wherever you're going to put it. I don't know if it doesn't look like it would be heavy or sturdy enough to do that. If you tried to swivel it like that, it looks like it would just kind of fall over. But maybe someone out there has tried it and can tell me, does it actually work? Does that contraption actually work if you try to snap it in there, and does it swivel? So there he is. Set him over here. Whoa, boy, this place gets dusty. Wow, I just cleaned it off a little while ago. Okay, well, but we should take note that, oh, wait, since we've been talking about the stand, just notice that it brags about the rotating display stand. So that's a selling point for them. The tube is just kind of taped on. It's just like pieces of tape holding it on there. It'll probably, all tape dries up eventually. And it'll probably fall apart, but whatever. It's holding together now. Ages 4 and up. It's interesting when you see like modern, I keep setting him here thinking I'm done with him, but I noticed something else. So on the, look on the back. Remember how last time we had the Bride of Frankenstein back there? There she is again. It's the same background, the same insert image behind the monster. So I really feel like these packages started as boxes and then became these tubes. The original plan was to put them in boxes, and so they used the graphics they designed for the box and converted it into something they could put in these tubes. I wonder what would have been more expensive, doing the boxes or the tubes. I would think the tubes. I would think having to engineer the top and the bottom and doing all the die cut stuff and making sure it all fit like that. I would think that would be more expensive. I don't know what they were thinking with these tubes. I don't know what was popular or trendy at the time that made them think that was the way to go. It kind of reminds me of the 1960s Lost in Space Japanese dolls. I think it's Morrison that made these, I think they're 9 inches tall, Lost in Space character dolls that were released at the time of the original series. So they were not something that came along years later. They were out while the series was in production and on the air. And they don't look, most of them look nothing like the characters, but I like the Dr. Smith doll in that series. I'd like to own that one of these days, the Morrison Dr. Smith doll. He doesn't really look like Jonathan Harris, but it captures the character. He's got a smirky little sneaky face. I like him. And I've seen all kinds of prices on that doll, anywhere from $200 to $1,500. It's just, anything goes. It just depends who's buying, who's selling. But the point is they come in tubes like that. They come in these clear plastic tubes with a top and a bottom. They're kind of, I call them cryogenic tubes, but they're sort of like, I don't know, yeah, I guess they do. When you go to a bank, like through a drive-through, do they still have this? Because when I was a kid, they had tubes like this, and you'd pull in, and you'd do your little machine, and whoop, this tube would come out, and you'd open it up, and you'd put a check in there, and you'd close it, and you'd put it back in this vacuum tube. You had the little metal and plastic tube, and then you had the big vacuum tube. You'd put them in there, and whoop, they'd go back into the bank building, and they take your check, and if you were going to cash it, they put money in there and put it back, whoop, and come out again. You take your money, whoop, put the tube back, and they look kind of like that. I guess they still have those. I haven't used a system like that in, heck, since the 90s, I guess. The last time I did that. If I want money, I just go to the ATM. But honestly, I don't use cash. I hardly ever. The cash that's in my wallet has been there for months. I hardly ever use cash for anything. So, I don't know. I'm guessing banks still do that. But so it reminds me of that. These tubes remind me of the tubes you use at the bank, at the drive-thru, the vacuum tubes. All right, so we need to take note of the fact that this was the first, as far as I know, the first licensed Son of Dracula merchandise ever. Was there ever a toy of Son of Dracula? Was there ever any kind of product based on Son of Dracula? I don't think there was a puzzle or mask or Halloween costume or you name it, whatever. I don't remember any kind of merchandise for Son of Dracula. That's the first one. Not even like an unofficial kind of a thing where they just called it Dracula but used Son of Dracula license. Not even that. So it's kind of historic. And to this day, I'm not sure there has been another Son of Dracula toy. Has there? What would it have been? I don't think the Diamond Select PVC figures, I don't think they had a Son of Dracula. I mean, what else would have had a Son of Dracula? I don't think there's ever been a licensed mask of Son of Dracula. So that's very odd. I'm assuming that they already had the Lon Chaney Jr. and Lon Chaney Sr. license through the Chaney estate. So they were on a roll. Hey, let's keep going with the Chaney stuff instead of having to deal with Bela Lugosi Jr. and trying to get his father's likeness licensed through Lugosi Enterprises, which I guess is who they would have dealt with at that time, and then having to deal with whatever feud might have been going on with Universal. There's always some issue with the studio and the heirs, and they're always fighting, and there's always friction there. So instead of having to deal with all that, if they've already got a deal worked out with the Chaney estate and Universal, well, this is our Dracula. This is an easy way to get Dracula in the series without having to deal with Lugosi and all that other stuff, or without having to have a generic Dracula. It doesn't look like anybody, which is what I think most companies, that's what most companies do. They just have a generic Dracula. Like who would have been the last? Like MC Toys had a pretty decent line of Miko style figures a few years ago, but the Dracula was generic. Super 7, they have Dracula, Bela Lugosi face on the card, and so I guess the figure's supposed to be Lugosi, but with this 3 3/4 inch format, you can't really tell if there's a likeness. The new Mego, old Mego had generic Mad Monsters that were not licensed, but the new Mego had a Dracula that was licensed through Lugosi, but it wasn't Universal. It was a great Dracula, probably the best, certainly in the 8-inch format, I would say it's the best Dracula 8-inch figure ever made, but it wasn't Universal. It was Lugosi, licensed through the estate, but it's not Universal. There's always an issue. I don't know what it would take. I mean, Sideshow miraculously managed to chop through all this, but even Sideshow had trouble because it was at the very end of that 8-inch line that they finally got a Lugosi license and put out Count Dracula and Igor in 8 inches, and also had Dracula 12-inch and Murder Legendre from White Zombie 12-inch, but then they had Bela from the Wolfman as the gypsy fortune teller Bela, which was an odd choice. I think they just did that because they had Lugosi license, so let's use it. But they didn't do 12-inch Igor. I wish they'd done 12-inch Igor, or I wish they'd done the Black Cat, Lugosi and Karloff figures from that. They didn't do that. It was a weird choice doing the fortune teller from Wolfman. That was talk about a deep cut. That was a deep cut. So again, going way off topic, I'm just trying to say that it's always dicey whether you're going to get a Lugosi license in a Universal Monsters set and be able to do a Universal Lugosi Dracula. And so the Son of Dracula neatly sidesteps all of that, while at the same time producing a toy that had never been produced before. There'd never been a Son of Dracula character toy, and I don't think there has been one since. So let's see what else we got in here. Oh, this is good. So there'd never been, here's another one. I don't know if there'd ever been an articulated action figure of the Invisible Man. That's another first. Aurora didn't make a model. They had plans, but they never made it. Marx didn't make any figurine or anything. Azrak Hamway, Mego, Lincoln, Remco, none of them did an Invisible Man. Imperial, Placo, none of them did an Invisible Man. Who else would have done Invisible Man? Even Ben Cooper. I don't know if, they certainly didn't do a Jiggler. Did they do a costume of the Invisible Man? I don't think so. Certainly not Universal. Halco didn't do it. So there hadn't been an action figure or a toy of the Invisible Man that I can think of before this. I could be forgetting something, but I don't think so. So this was another first, this Invisible Man. And he doesn't really look a whole lot. He looks like kind of like a Tim Burton interpretation of the Invisible Man, because he's all in black with black Beetlejuice kind of stripes on his tie, and this checkered, black and white checkered look. So he's kind of like the goth Invisible Man, because the movie Invisible Man didn't have an outfit like that. He never wore those colors. The illustration kind of looks movie accurate, sort of. And I don't think the bandages on his head are bandages. I think he's just got a sock over his head, tight in the back. It's not really bandages. And from what I understand, I've never seen it in person, but from pictures I've seen, he does have a Claude Rains likeness underneath. It's clear plastic. So the head underneath is clear plastic. I don't know if his hands are clear plastic, but his head is, and it does look like Claude Rains. I don't think they got a license for Claude Rains. Well, this is interesting. I'm looking at the licensing. No, there's no Claude Rains, but there is an Elsa Lanchester copyright. Elsa Lanchester likeness licensed by Motion Picture and Television Fund. So I'm wondering if the boxed Elsa that we had last episode was licensed through the Motion Picture Television Fund. I had just assumed it wasn't, but maybe it was, because the face didn't really look like Elsa. Maybe it was just not a very good likeness, but maybe it was intended to look like her. Okay, but there's no Claude Rains. No Claude Rains license. But the head, when you take that mask off, I'm not going to call it bandages, the mask, when you take it off, it does look like Claude Rains underneath. But it's clear plastic. And I don't think his gloves have fingers like mittens. Good old Mego style mittens. And here you can see and he's at an angle, not straight on. He's more like the Phantom and Bride illustrations instead of the other ones where they're looking straight at you. So here is Invisible Man. He looks nothing like the one in the movie, in the James Whale film. Very goth, very Tim Burton, very 90s. And you can see in the back, it's tied in the back. Maybe see if we get a better look this way. Yeah, there you go. It kind of has a Nightbreed vibe. Clive Barker Nightbreed vibe. I don't know if those glasses would hold on without that mask. I don't think they would. The costume is pretty cool, actually. It's pretty sharp. just doesn't look like the movie, that's all. There's so many reflections. See, when it's black, it's hard, everything reflects off of it. It's got these wires on the bottom that are... You see the wires? It's hard to... They're just kind of sticking out down there. I'm trying to show you how... Yeah, they're sticking out a lot. So if he were on a flat surface, I guess it'd be okay. But he's kind of sitting on top of the wires. And it looks like he has... I think they all have the same rocky sort of sculpted base. Now in this one you can see the doll stand behind him. At least I can see it with my naked eye. There, I think, yeah, you can see it. There it is. I think you can see it. It's all plastic, it looks like. You can see the stem coming up, and then the arms gripping around the waist. Now, there he is. Set him over there. So that was another first. They had the Invisible Man, 12 inches. Had not been an Invisible Man action figure, as far as I know. First one. Another first. That's another thing to note. Is this is probably the first time a toy set articulated attempted to really round up all of the Universal characters together and present something of a definitive series instead of just doing Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, sometimes Creature, or adding a Phantom or something. This set is the first time that it's going beyond the usual suspects, and it's giving us the Invisible Man in two different flavors of mummies, and going for something more specific than just generic Dracula, but from a particular film, a specific movie version of Dracula. And I don't know that there had been a articulated bride before either, so a lot of firsts. Aurora, the model kits, they had a bride, but they were not toys. They were not articulated. They didn't have an Invisible Man, but they did have a Phantom. There wasn't a bride toy until when? I mean, I don't think articulated, kind of a toy, not until Hasbro. There was a Collegeville Halloween costume that we've seen on this show. That was a licensed Bride of Frankenstein. And I don't remember all the different monsters that were on the licensed Universal lunchbox. I did a show on that. But, you know, that's a lunchbox. It's pictures. I'm talking about toys. Things you can hold in your hand and play with and use your imagination. So, I feel like this is a really historic set. Which one? Let's do Creature next. All right, here's the Creature. Now this is, let's get right to him. I think people want to see this. Look at him. Isn't he cute? I really like this Creature. That's quite a toy. And you see, he does have that straight-on look with half his head cut off. So it makes me wonder if, we'll see more of him in a second, but it makes me wonder about if the ones that had that straight-on with the head cut in half, the dissected head, bisected I should say, the bisected head, were those originally all planned as one series, and then the ones that are looking at an angle, were those planned as another series? Because we have Phantom, yeah, Phantom Bride and Invisible Man, with the illustrations that look like they're in a different style, and they're looking to the side, and you can see more of their face. And then we got Frankenstein, Son of Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, and now Creature, looking straight ahead with the face cut down the middle. So I'm wondering if that's a clue as to maybe what was originally planned as far as what sets were going to come out, like Series 1, Series 2. And the ones with certain with this style, straight ahead art were planned first, and the artwork was contracted first, and then a second wave of designs was ordered that had the faces at an angle. So we'll see more of him in a second, but this is quite an investment because he's all sculpted. Imagine them deciding to make this. He's all sculpted from head to toe. There's no costume. There's no creature pajamas or anything like that. It's a sculpted body, and yet it looks totally consistent with the rest of the series. It's not like the odd man out. It's perfectly at home with all the other ones. So, I mean, obviously, the big example of that approach would be the Azrak Hamway. So you had two different creatures for Azrak Hamway, and this looks a little bit more like what's called the female creature. I know there's effort to refer to her as the thin waist creature, and this is the wide waist creature. Yeah, I think I still call them the male and the female creature, whatever. And I remember at the time thinking that this harkened back to the Ahai female thin waist creature. That kind of reminded me of that. I don't know if these arms are bendable, if they have wires in them. Do they have like holes in the back? No, I don't see any holes. So maybe not. I don't know if I'm assuming the legs are bendable, because you've got one that's bent right there in the package. I wouldn't have thought that. I'm sure you can bend those legs. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure you can. And maybe you can do it with the arms too. I don't know. He's really cool. The only part that's a little off is the waist, just because of out of necessity, the way he's designed. The articulation requires it. But other than that, it's a really well-designed toy that doesn't get a lot of love. And I really like the head. The head looks like the Remco head a little bit. It kind of reminds me of the Remco head. But I like the look of that head. It's got that fishy look, which a lot of creature toys don't capture. But it really has that round, fishy, froggy look. So let's see more. And his lips are green. They're not red. They're not painted. He's a very pleasant looking creature. He's a friendly creature. He wants to be your friend. And when I was a kid, I would have loved a 12-inch creature like this. I had my trusty Ahai creature that you just saw. What you just saw is my childhood creature. But it would have also been cool to have a 12-inch creature like this. And I'm torn as to whether I prefer this 12-inch creature or the Sideshow 12-inch creature. The Sideshow looks much more serious. It's it's a scarier sort of design, and I suppose it's more film accurate, the Sideshow one. But I really like the sculpt on this head. This head really, I think, captures the real look of the creature, the Gill-man, more than the Sideshow. I always thought the shape of the Sideshow head was a little off. And this is more like what the creature's head really looks like. I can't really see. Yeah, well, you can just barely see the back of the head before the package gets in the way. There's this fin on the back. He's got a nice fin sticking out there. I really like his legs and feet. Look at that. Look at all that detail and texture and the shape of them. And they gave him like his, what would be the equivalent of his big toe or his thumb is set back, which is what the movie creature really looks like. There it is, you can see it there. Whereas like the Aurora kit and a lot of earlier creature toys would have had that coming out on the same length as the rest of the toes. But that's more of a movie accurate design. This toy is more true to the film design. They didn't go overboard with the size of his hands. Sometimes creature toys have really big hands, and I don't know, I guess these hands could have been a little bigger, but I like that they're not too big. And you can see what I mean about the waist. Just because of the way that it's jointed, it kind of has to look that way, but that's the only flaw in this design. He looks like you could take him into the bathtub. I can imagine a kid playing with this in the bathtub. He'd lose some paint, but I don't know what else would go wrong. There's no costume to get messed up. There's no metal pieces to get rusty or anything. He probably would make a good bathtub toy. Look at the texture. On his scales, like all over his body. So I think this is an underrated toy. And oh, by the way, of course, because he doesn't have a costume, you can really see the doll stand and the way it's designed, the way it works. And that connects to the base. So he's pretty cool. Oh, you know, I've been talking about the Aurora creature. We have one here, I forgot. I should show him. Where I'm going to put you down here. This is the creature toy that started it all. So here's the Aurora creature from the Black Lagoon model kit. Pretty much every creature toy owes something to this. And you can see what I was talking about with the feet. That most creature toys have that look because, I guess because of the Aurora, you know, the way that was designed. But you can see how all the toes are the same length instead of the, whatever you would call the big toe, the equivalent of it, instead of it being shorter and set back, which is what the movie creature looks like. So there's the iconic Aurora creature from the Black Lagoon model kit. Still the most iconic creature figure, if you want to call it that, ever made. And another, here's a 90s piece. This is the Horizon vinyl creature. Horizon model kit. his head looks a lot like the Hasbro. I'm not saying that they copied it or anything, but it looks more like the movie creature than the Aurora one does. I mean, this Horizon looks more like the movie, the way it's proportioned. Now we're going way off topic. And you can see here that A-High and modeled theirs off of the Aurora kit. I mean, everything, the A-High is basically cannibalized from this model kit. Whereas the Hasbro creature, well, that's Invisible Man. Where's the creature? There it is. Hasbro creature really seems to owe quite, the more I look at it, the more I think it owes quite a bit to this Horizon. I think the Horizon came out first. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what year it was, but I mean, who knows? But if they had any reference, this might have been part of the reference material that they used. If nothing else, I don't know if the Hasbro creature, you know, if the designers looked at this or not, but they're both from the 90s. That's the point. They're both from the 90s era, and you can kind of see the aesthetic at work in the 90s to this more movie accurate design. Where the heck did I have him? I'll just put him here for now. Deal with him later. Okay. Well, let's go to the last one. So this is, to me, the biggest deal of the set. This is the star of the set. This is Karis from the Mummy's Tomb. And it has that the illustration from the style like the first series, looking right at you, and stood to the side. He was a HasbroCollectors.com exclusive, so they didn't sell him at the store. You had to order him. He looks a lot, well, the body looks a lot like the Imhotep mummy from the earlier series, but from the first. Depends how you want to look at the first, second, third. Is the JCPenney boxed set the first series, and then the individual boxed purple and green boxes the second series, and then the tubes the third series? Is that how you would categorize them, or would you group the JCPenney boxed set along with the individual boxed figures and call that one series, the first series? Do you break off the JCPenney box as its own series or its own wave, or do you lump it together with the individual boxes? I think it adds more clarity to say that the JCPenney box, even though it's just a standalone item, there's 3 figures, that's the first series, first wave, whatever you want to call it, since it came out a year before the others. And then the individual box, purple and green boxes, that's the second wave or second series. And then these tubes are the third series. So, here's Karis. Here's his head. He does look like, you know, Lon Chaney Jr. in the mummy, that the mummy from those films. He does look like him. He's got the one closed eye like he should. He's very reminiscent of the Aurora model kit, which I wish I had that here to show you. I don't. I should have thought of that. But he looks a lot like the Aurora kit, and I like that his head's yellow. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna if you're gonna on video if it's gonna register as yellow, but to the naked eye it looks yellow. Not like Crayola crayon yellow. I mean, it's kind of a greenish, grayish, dull yellow, but it's yellow. And the reason that's significant is that the Azrak Hamway mummy figure had a yellow head, and that's because the Aurora 69 and 72 glow releases in those square boxes, and I think the frightening lightning as well in the long box. The artwork for those Aurora glow kit mummies had a yellow head because it was supposed to be glowing. It glows in the dark, so it has a glowing head. And so Ahai copied that in their figure and gave their mummy figure a yellow head. And I've seen that, like Ben Cooper on their box art for the Ben Cooper 70s monster Halloween costumes, gave those the faces on that costume are all yellow because of the Aurora glow kit. It was a very influential that box art. Anyway, so it's cool that they made him yellow. I mean, you could say he's kind of gray, he's kind of this, he's kind of that, he's kind of green, but he's kind of yellow. And the body looks a lot like the Imhotep body. The way although these bandages are a little more ragged looking, it seems. They're a little scruffy looking, as they should be. And his hands are not the same as the Imhotep hands. Appropriately, he's got one hand. His right hand is, the fingers are together, and the thumb is kind of short because it's supposed to be burnt, that hand. And in the movie, when you can see the hand that in the Lon Chaney Jr. costume, it's like a mitten or something. It's supposed to be like the fingers are gone, I think. And so it doesn't have the fingers. And the Aurora mummy kit doesn't have fingers. So they didn't go all out with, giving him just like a stumpy kind of a hand. He has fingers, but his thumb is short. It's not as long as the left thumb, which is full length. It's kind of a stubby thumb. So they made some effort. I think maybe they didn't want to get too grisly with this toy, but they made some effort to suggest something wrong with that hand. It looks like his thumb is got bandages around it. Now the way, well, let me show. I've been talking about his hands, and you're not looking at them. So that's what I'm talking about. You see how the right hand is different from the left hand, as it should be. That's movie accurate. And it's not the same hands that the Karloff Imhotep figure has. There's the artwork. I think I'm talking so much I'm forgetting to show you the toy. He's pretty cool. As cool as he is, what would have been even better would be if they could have added some detail with the bandages, give him like a X cross on his chest and some bandages hanging down. That would have just that would have sealed the deal. That would have been amazing. But at least they made a Karis. as far as I know, this is the only toy company that's ever marketed a mummy as Karis. Now it says the mummy's tomb, which is the title of the movie. And I can understand that they got to get mummy in there somewhere, because if they said Karis, people, I was going to say kids. Kids would say, who's that? Adults wouldn't say, who's that? That's interesting. Huh. So they're talking about the movie here. On the back. They call him the Mummy. They don't have the name Karis anywhere on here. Now that's interesting. I wonder if Universal mandated that you can't use the name Karis. Because I've heard Universal's weird about the whole Karis thing. Like, I know MC wanted their mummy to be Karis, and I saw a prototype of their Karis figure, and Universal put the kibosh on that. I've heard other people talk about when trying to get a licensed Karis figure made, that Universal, they don't want a Karis. And if you do get a license for Karis, you can't put any blood on him. You can't put any blood on any mummy, even though like these 70s mummy toys, the Azrak Hanway and the Lincoln Mummy and the Jigglers, they all had blood all over them. And the Aurora artwork for their model kits, they depicted blood on the mummy. So it's kind of nostalgic. That would have you could still customize this, of course. Put a little blood oozing from his eye. Add some extra bandages hanging off him. He's interesting. But no, they don't have the name Karis anywhere on this package, and I bet you that was mandated. I bet you that Universal said, we're not licensing the character Karis, we're licensing the mummy. I don't know what the deal is. Universal's weird about Karis. This is odd the way they describe these plots. A killing spree ensues until, I better start. Egyptian folklore is filled with strange and mysterious tales of those who dared to tamper with the tombs of ancient mummies. Such inflections were the hope of a high priest when he transported a 3,000-year-old mummy from Egypt to America, kept alive by a steady diet of tanna leaf tea, to avenge the members of an archaeological expedition that defiled the tomb of his beloved princess. The Mummy's Tomb continues the mesmerizing mysteries of mummy mania with a chilling performance by Lon Chaney Jr. as the Mummy, who makes the unwilling journey to destroy those who disturbed his rest. A killing spree ensues until the high priest falls in love with the head archaeologist's fiancée and tries to make the mummy dupe the woman into becoming his high priestess. An angry mob puts a fiery end to all the havoc in another suspenseful thriller showcasing this famed second-generation horror film star. And they're all like that. They're all almost like reviews of the movie, and have funny little phrases like, what's it about the dupings? Tries to make the mummy dupe the woman into becoming the high priestess. That's, when I think of Karis, I think of him duping people. Karis is going to dupe this woman he's going to pull a fast one. That Karis is a sly dog. Got to watch out for him. And they've all these write-ups have little weird things like that. I don't know what else to say about this Karis, except it's cool it exists. Sideshow did not make a Karis. 8-inch or 12-inch or premium. Or Little Big Hit, I don't think. Don't think so. They made Ardith Bay and Imhotep, but they did not make Karis. Diamond Select, whether their PBC series does not have a Karis. No, it doesn't. It does not have a Karis. Their Mego style set does not have a Karis. They wanted to make one, but Universal said no. Azrak Hanway has a Karis, but it's not officially called Karis. It's the Mummy. Lincoln and Mego just made generic mummies, and Remco has a mummy, but it's Imhotep. So, Aurora, their mummy model kit is Karis, but it's not marketed as Karis. It's just the Mummy. The Ahai and Ben Cooper Jigglers are both unofficially Karis. The Ahai Bendum is Karis unofficially. The Imperial mummy figure is Claris from Abbott and Costello meet the Mummy, but it's not officially called that. But that's what it is. It's just called the Mummy, but it's Claris from Abbott and Costello. Placo, can't really tell. It's so generic, you can't even tell who that mummy is supposed to be. Just Toys, Bendums. Again, it's so generic you can't tell, but from the write-up on the card, it sounds like Imhotep. What else we got here? There was a couple other Universal Monster sets in the 2000s. Oh gosh, who made those other two sets? Darn it, I can't think of it. Can't think of them. Whatever. As far as I know, this is the only action figure licensed as Karis or Kharis, however you want to pronounce it. I say Karis because I think there were a character in the movies. People pronounce it Karis and Kharis. But if it isn't Karis, then what's the joke in Abbott and Costello? Because that mummy's Claris. So if the Lon Chaney mummy isn't Karis, then it doesn't rhyme with Claris, then there's no joke. But you can say Karis, you can say Karis, you can say Kharis. Okay, so that's all of them. So the Mummy's Tomb, I ordered that from HasbroCollectors.com back in the day. That one wasn't in stores. That's it. That's the set. So I think the Hasbro 12-inch monster set, it doesn't get a lot of love. It's very underrated. No one ever talks about it. And it's kind of strange because it's a very historic set of toys. So many firsts. First 12-inch Universal Monsters action figures. The first really important Universal Monsters toys of the 90s. There had been other Universal Monsters toys, but that was really the first significant one, followed quickly by the Sideshows, which I think is because they're in the shadow of the Sideshow toys. Sideshow just stole the show when they came along, and they were so. If they had come along 10 years later, then maybe it'd be different. Then maybe the Hasbros would have had their time to shine and build their own legend. But because they were immediately upstaged by the Sideshow toys figures, they're kind of forgotten. They don't go for a lot of money. I mean, there are people who think a vintage toy for $40 or $50 is, oh, so expensive. I could never afford that. I mean, good grief. I mean, have you seen the price of new toys? Just go to Target and look at the shelves and see how much those things cost. But so they're fairly affordable. I haven't checked every single character on eBay, but over the years I've looked at them, and they don't seem to be appreciating much in value. So if you really want to acquire a set, you can do it. It's not like you're going to spend hundreds of dollars for any of these. I don't know which ones are harder to get than the others, but I don't think any of them go for big bucks. You know, there's not like $1,000 figure in the set, or a $500 figure, or whatever. So they're fairly affordable, because people just don't care. Like I said, it's an underrated, underappreciated set that collectors generally just don't care about. They don't care about. They care about the Sideshow figures from that era. And from that era, there really isn't anything else that's risen to the top of collector priority. Even like the diamond figures, I don't know. They go for strangely high dollar points, some of those diamond figures. But I don't know. I don't hear people ever talk about them or anything. So it's odd that the Hasbro set was so forgotten and overlooked. You've got they're really cute, really nice toy designs. They're not like Medicom or Hot Toys or something. They're not super serious, super screen accurate. They're toys. They have this kind of cuddly, clunky toy aesthetic, and I like that. They're just good enough to be aimed kind of at the adult collector, but still have the play value and the cuteness that you would expect from a toy that a kid would play with. And they're priced, as we said last time, they had two price tiers. The first figures were $19.99, and then the later figures were $24.99. Not cheap in the 90s, not cheap, but for what you're getting, it's pretty good value. I remember at the time not being bothered by the price, not thinking that was particularly expensive for that kind of a toy. They look very attractive as collector's pieces. You can put them on your shelf, and you don't have to take them out of the package to appreciate them. I think I don't have them out of the package, but it seems to me that they would look equally good in or out of the package. With these tubes, you really don't need to take them out of the package. You can pretty much see the whole character right there. The first time anyone had made a 12-inch Universal Monsters licensed set of toys, G.I. Joe style toys, first time in almost 20 years that there had been good articulated, costumed Universal Monsters figures. First time that anyone had made a Bride of Frankenstein action figure. First time that anyone had made Son of Dracula or Invisible Man action figures. First time that anyone had marketed a mummy figure as the Loncini Jr. mummy. First time I think that anyone had marketed the Karloff mummy as being specifically the Karloff Imhotep mummy. First time that any toy company had gotten actor licenses so that they could say it's the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, it's the Boris Karloff mummy, it's the Loncini Jr. mummy, Loncini Sr. Phantom. First time that that the actors' likenesses had been connected with the toy on the package like that. So a lot of firsts. Really an historic set of toys that paved the way for everything that came afterward. I think even now, I think certainly the Sideshows, the Diamond, Select, the MC, and even now with the Mego figures coming out, I think they all owe something to this Hasbro set, which really, it was the first. It was the one that landed on the moon first and planted its flag, but no one cares. And speaking of Mego, I saw a sneak preview of their new Universal licensed Frankenstein and Bride figures. And the Frankenstein, by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be old news, but I mean, the Frankenstein has, thank goodness, a Boris Karloff likeness. Thank goodness. If they had put out that MC head again, I would have just I would not have liked that. They didn't do that. Thank goodness. I'm not clear on whether the Bride is the MC or a new sculpt. I'm a little confused. I need to see more photos and hear more about that. I couldn't quite tell. It sounded like maybe it was a new sculpt, but visually I wasn't able to tell right away. So I need to see more images to find out. But anyway, I was happy, certainly with the Frankenstein. I needed to see more about the Bride, but certainly with the Frankenstein, I was very happy to see that it was a good Karloff Frankenstein. Thank goodness. So I'll be buying that. Okay, I think that's it. What else can I tell you? It's kind of a interesting time that we're living in. You know, one of the reasons I haven't had a show in a few weeks is just everything going on. I'm just looking at the news, looking at social media. I feel kind of stupid with everything going on to sit here talking about toys. I feel it's kind of irresponsible, like the world's burning down behind me. And I'm like, look at this action figure. But you know, these days the sky is always falling, the world is always burning. You know, we just gotta keep on going. So hopefully there won't be some cataclysm in the next week or so, and I'll be able to put another episode out. I'm not sure yet. I've got a couple ideas. I'm not sure right now what my next episode will be. We'll see. But there will be another episode soon. Until then, make sure you subscribe to this channel. So something's going to appear now on the screen. Subscribe to this channel and click the bell. You can try to ring the bell, but it's not going to make any sound. So click the bell and subscribe to this channel. And go to the Basement of Horror Facebook group. We have a Facebook group. It's still getting revved up. We're in the process of getting it together. I mean, it's open for business, but there's not a lot of activity yet. There's about 100 people. That will be a more active group as time goes on. So get in there. Feel free to share your monster collections. Talk about the show. Talk about the episodes. Just do your own thing. Only caveat would be please no politics, and try to keep on topic with monster related stuff. But other than that, and be polite to people. Don't be rude. Like Hannibal Lecter, I detest rudeness. Don't be rude. So go to the Facebook group, Basement of Horror. There'll be a link in the description. And be part of that group. I think we'll be doing good things in the future. Just get in on it, be part of it, join, and it will grow over time. I look over here because I can see how long it's been. How long has this episode been? Too long. We have got to wrap this up. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you watching. Until next time, remember that the one who dies with the most toys is dead.